so my first steps from not knowing how to write a single line of code. I have found this YouTube tutorial. At the moment it has like 22 million views. Other than that, that's basically my only reason why I'm going to put so much confidence into the belief that this will be a good tutorial for me as a beginner. I'm gonna put the link for the tutorial I'm gonna be using in the description. So literally my first steps are just going to be to follow this tutorial and to tell you how I'm getting along. It's 4 hours long altogether, and I hope that by the end of it I will kind of get an idea of what these beginnings are going to be like for me. So I have decided to learn Python as my first programming language. I based my decision on what the popular YouTube programmers slash YouTubers said the best option would be in 2021, and considering I'm starting computer science uni in September, I view this as just kind of me learning something by myself. They'll possibly put someone like me who has never done anything similar in a better position for being a better student.
In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to install Python onto your computer.
So as I mentioned, the tutorial I was working with, you can see it running in the background at the moment from a YouTuber called Mike. So from what I can see, Mike has originally uploaded individual lessons on his YouTube channel where he teaches coding, and then it was later on compiled by Free Code channel. So the actual link, I'll be putting it right below as the first link, is the 4-hour long version where everything has been compiled together. So what I really liked immediately when I opened the tutorial is to actually see that Mike plans to take you by your hand and literally guide you through everything, and literally from the actual installing of the Python to the first steps on how to write the simplest things, the most basic things, he guides you through it all. And that was really useful for me, because I had this fear that once I start to do these things and try to learn, that I actually won't even understand what's going on. And just to see that in this tutorial you get that literal from the beginnings of everything approach, it was kind of relieving, and it's good motivation so you don't get kind of disheartened if you get overwhelmed or you think things got too complicated too quickly. Literally within the first hour you're already writing things and you don't feel any headaches about trying to understand what it is. It's very straightforward, very simple. A simple command will have to get Python to print out a statement. So that approach, baby steps and simplicity, I think it works great for beginners. You can't go wrong with it if you're trying to teach anything, let alone something as complicated as programming. So all throughout the beginnings of this tutorial, so for example getting input from users, I had to get used to just remembering how to write things. You know, it's small things at this level, just, you know, properly putting commas and whatever where you're supposed to do it. I will write the code, and as soon as I will try to run it, you get an error, and it will just be something as simple as you know, not leaving a gap, a space between two words, and you kind of make these small writing mistakes. So after an hour and a half, I kind of slowed down and realized I really need to be more careful about the way I write it. It was as simple as that for me. But I felt quite comfortable going through these individual lessons where he explains lists, list functions, tuples. You really can't even feel overwhelmed because it's as simple as writing what he writes. If you're using two monitors, which I highly suggest for something like this, if you're trying to learn programming, and you literally just look at what he's writing there, he's explaining what means what, and you write it on your own. Every lesson is kind of based on just one thing, so it's slow, it's very methodical, and you're just kind of slowly building towards some kind of foundation when it comes to these basics. I'd like to stop here for a second and kind of emphasize what I think was a really nice moment for me whilst I was going through this. In a lesson where he teaches you how to build a very simple calculator, the way how that first lesson is taught by him is basically just to teach you how to get input from user when it comes to asking them what numbers they want to put into the calculator, and then you get a result. Immediately I started thinking of, I wonder how I can actually get this calculator to ask the user to choose the operation they want. So whether they want to subtract or multiply, and he does it later. For that specific lesson, you're just meant to learn how to get the input and the numbers. But I tried doing that on my own without getting there ahead, and I think that was really good that I approached it that way, very proactive in the way how I was thinking about things that I was learning there. It's just very good when you're doing this tutorial to kind of think as much as you can, ask yourself questions and try to answer them, or maybe try practicing doing something before you actually even get to the part in the lesson when he will tell you that. I feel like that way of engaging with this tutorial is far more beneficial for you if you're learning this. So I'm gonna try to quickly just write this code for the calculator the way how it was written in the first lesson where he's trying to build the basic calculator. So then I'm gonna make the addition to the code so the program can actually recognize if the user wants to input the operation for the calculator to do. So they can choose, do you want to multiply, multiply, divide, or whatever. So this will be the original version from the basic calculator. You can see now, if we run our code, you're asked to input a number. So let's say you do 1. So let's say you put in 6, and the second number is I want to add 10, and the program recognizes that, and you have your 16 there as a result. So obviously this works as the most basic calculator, but when I was doing this bit, I actually thought already, wait, can I write it in a way that I can have the program to ask the user, what do you want to do with these two numbers? So now we get to the part where you can do that, and the code is quite simple. So I have just quickly written this bit so you can see. So this is now what we have added. So we have a code that makes our program smart enough to ask for the operator and then acts based on what the user actually selects. So you have different commands. Especially the bit that I like is that we can add, even though this will work as the calculator, we can add an option that will make the program recognize if an invalid operator was given, and then instead of just going into error, it will actually give the explanation. So it will look something like this.
Throw an error. So I'm just gonna say OP, or actually we just say else. And here we'll just print out like invalid operator. Let's go ahead and run this and see how we do. So I'm gonna run this program. So I'll enter in like 5, and now we'll just enter in like an open and close parentheses and a 4. So you can see here it's able to tell, like the program's smart enough to know that that's not a valid operator. So, and it says enter first number, let's enter 5, enter an operator. So why don't we just do addition and enter a second number, let's do 23. So now it prints out the answer, 28. So our calculator actually works.
So I really like that part because it just feels like a puzzle solving situation where you are building that first calculator and you start asking yourself, wait, I actually want my calculator to ask the user what they want to do with these numbers. And you actually kind of feel like, you know, it's the itch you want to scratch type of a moment, but you don't have the knowledge yet. So it's the curiosity. You can't wait to get to the part where you can learn what type of code you can write for your program to be able to do that. It felt, like I said, like I've solved a puzzle. But obviously it does get a little bit harder for a beginner to understand everything that's going on. So when I completed the 4 hours of this tutorial, honestly, I didn't feel that comfortable with everything that I have learned. It wasn't because of the way it was taught or something like that. It was just because of like so much information, and I have just kind of followed him once. So I wanted to go through it again in a more constructive way. So I've developed this system that basically I will find his channel, which I did, where you can find all the individual lessons that have been compiled into the original tutorial I showed you. So then I went through every single lesson one by one. Oh, just to mention, I was writing a journal whilst I was doing the tutorial, and so this was my 5th day of the whole process, and look what I wrote here. Finished the 4-hour tutorial, still not feeling comfortable, and decided to go through the entire tutorial again with a new system. After every individual lesson, I plan to take pictures of the written code and color code them or label them with text, sort of like revision cards to go through. The idea will be that I'll memorize the fundamentals of writing basic concepts, functions, and get more used to and familiar with the actual coding. And then basically I can use the revision cards later on if I just gonna need to refresh my memory about something, and I don't have to go through the entire video. I don't have to spend that much time. If I just kind of can't remember something, I can open up a picture, see the code, and that'll be enough for me. So that was what I did. I went through the entire tutorial again, but this time with the new system. And I feel this worked great because I already knew kind of everything that was in the tutorial because I've done it, the entire 4 hours of it. But this time I took much more time and I approached the individual lessons that will be like 5, 7, 8 minute videos that he did. And I would genuinely not move on until I kind of was confident that I understood everything that was written there and that I'm able to do it on my own even if I wasn't following directly his video. And then at the end of everything, I will take a screenshot and just save the picture of that code so I can use it as my revision cards. So I would definitely suggest that you do the same if you do the tutorial. Don't just try watching it once and then kind of maybe get disheartened if you haven't caught up with everything in those 4 hours to the level that you would expect to. So I definitely advise that you do it the second time with the system, whatever works for you. For me, it was this way, and just taking screenshots, it was enough. Maybe you can take notes, whichever way of studying works best for you, but definitely do it. So that's it. That's how I got through my first Python tutorial, and for me it feels great. I feel like I have learned a lot. Now I'm looking how to continue my learning journey, and for the next learning session that I do, I'll be actually recording much more of the in the moment whilst I'm doing it. Whilst I'm doing a certain project or learning how to do something, I plan to actually record the process itself. So if you like this, if you like what you saw here and you want to continue being part of this journey, don't forget to subscribe and show some support, and I'll see you next time.